Being an office goer in big cities like Bengaluru is a nightmare for many. The silver lining that came along with the COVID-19 pandemic of working from home is clearly fading, with many corporates asking their employees to return to office full-time. In fact, a recent 2023 report revealed that Indian employees spend an average of 59 minutes traveling 20 kilometers one way in big metros. That's close to 2 hours of daily commute time, a 15% increase compared to pre-pandemic years. Enter MoveInSync, an employee commute platform that has been steadily disrupting corporate transport over its 14-year journey. On this episode of Disruptor Dialogues, we catch up with Deepesh Agarwal, CEO and co-founder of MoveInSync, for more on how this company is driving change in the domain. Welcome to Disruptor Dialogues. Deepesh, thank you so much for your time today.
Shivani, good to be here.
This problem statement is really interesting. How did you really arrive at it, start solving for employee commute?
My batchmate Akash and I, we studied together at IIT, and we did start thinking that we're going to solve some problem in the traffic/commute space. We've been Bangaloreans, we've experienced this ourselves. And I think just like any other entrepreneur, the easiest at that point in time when we started this was like a carpool app. But I think it was a little too early for its time because Uber had not come to India. The concept of mobile-based apps had not evolved. So I do think that it was a little too early. So the way it happened is we were trying to socialize this concept of carpool. And back then the company was in Hyderabad. And we were meeting a lot of corporate based in Gachibowli and the high-tech city area, and we are encouraging them to tell their employees to do a carpooling. And I think one of the companies which we met and we pitched our carpool idea came back to us actually after 6 months, and they said, you know what, we have a problem, but that's not a carpooling problem. We do provide commute to our employees, but those are cabs, and we want to optimize the cabs, and we want to bring transparency to their entire operations. This was back in 2010. And at that point in time, Akash sort of got this thesis that we can build this entire thing on like an Android phone. There were hardly any Android phones in India. Drivers had never used them. But I think it was just probably some hard work and maybe some luck that we came upon this solution where we could digitize the entire commute experience by corporates. And I think this company sort of who came to us with the problem statement later became our first client and probably our longest serving client in Google.
So great starting point there, but delve into a little bit of the intricacies in actually building in a space like this, because it's highly unorganized, highly fragmented, and you're building a new age tech platform or company in this fragmented space, which was largely, in the space, it was led by GPS devices. It was led by one app to really figure out, the trip route or stuff like that.
The market before this was a vehicle tracking or a fleet management market, which existed in US and in other nations, where people would track their assets like trucks, etc., to make sure that the goods are delivered. And what was used in India, which was like a unique problem in India, where people were getting cabs and shuttles for their 24/7 operations, mostly because it was a government regulation to provide those, was basically served by the fleet management solutions, which are meant for trucks, etc. So the whole center point was around the vehicle to optimize the fuel consumptions of the vehicles. But now you look at a problem statement where the company is trying to optimize for the safety and security of the employees, right? So you're trying to sort of put a square in a round hole, right? So there was a misfit there. And I think that's what we looked at the problem statement from first principles. That are you trying to optimize the fuel usage or the fuel theft in a cab, or are you as a company trying to make sure that how do you drop your employees safe and secure at their home and ensure you spend the right amount? So I think that led to thinking of us as a tech which did not exist. And I think this whole concept, as you mentioned, that there were multiple hardwares, right? There was a GPS device. There was this RFID reader which people use at their offices to swipe in and swipe out. So there was whole sort of this entire paraphernalia of hardwares which were created for different use cases. There was a walkie-talkie to sometimes call on emergencies. So there was this massive broken hardware clunk which was out there to solve a problem which was not it was meant for. So I think that kind of led to us with looking at the problem statements at three problems which existed back in 2010 and still exist now. How do you make sure that employees, especially women employees, reach their home in a safe manner, right? That's the first problem statement. The second problem statement is, how do you make sure that this entire operations, which as you said, is led by unorganized fleet partners, is auditable, audit-worthy and compliant? That was the second problem statement. And the third is around employee convenience. How do you make sure it is optimized and the experience is good and pleasant? So these were the three problem statements for which we tried building the solution, which obviously over time was used by the multi-stakeholder system in which driver is one stakeholder, the employees are one stakeholder, but because it's a company system, there are multiple other stakeholders like the audit team of the company, the team manager of the company, the finance team of the company, and the entire transportation team.
So what would you say, is your unique value proposition or your competitive advantage? We know that you have, you spoke about the solutions, two of these marquee products, right? MoveInSync Ion, which is your SaaS platform, and MoveInSync One, which is more of a full-fledged service platform. Tell us more about that.
We created a portfolio of offerings, and I think there are two offerings which we sort of look at it. One is the software offering or the tech offering, which we started back in 2010 with Google, right? Which is software which is used by companies to automate their entire transportation operation. But then as we went deeper into the ecosystem, Shivani, what we realized is that, so for many companies, or in fact for all companies, transportation is important but not core. So how is it that we can bring, instead of just a software solution, can we offer their entire transportation service or transport as a service? So that's the second offering which we created later in our journey around 2018, where we offer end-to-end transportation service. So think of it like an enterprise version for Uber, etc., where you as a company can say that, yes, I want to provide transportation to 1,000 employees, which would, some of them would work on a Monday, Tuesday, Friday, some of them would work on a Thursday, Friday, etc., and make sure that all of them reach office in a safe and secure manner using tech-led operations which are predictable and scalable.
Great. So, you've been in the business now for 14 years. Your product has evolved. Tell us what are, the key growth drivers over this entire span of time. We know that, you were profitable in 2017 and COVID hit. That must have been a direct hit to a business like yours. So how did you survive and thrive, and are you profitable again now? Businesses have a sole purpose, and businesses' sole purpose cannot be just to raise capital, right? So we finally have to figure it out. At some point, the businesses have to break even, right? And especially if you see, we serve multiple fortune companies in this country. And if those fortune companies are not willing to pay us, who under the sun will pay us, right? So I think at some scale we decided that, yes, we will initially invest in product development like companies, we will do a capital raise, etc. But we will raise fund to get the product development and initially charge the right price. So I think a few years into our journey, 4 to 5 years, we did turn profitable, and it was a conscious choice back then. When COVID hit, we obviously were just lost for thoughts and what to do, and obviously we added a new product and sort of that kept us going. But I think getting employees back to the office and this world will not just turn into a work from home world is what we strongly believed in. That innovation thrives when people collaborate. So I think that was the firm thesis, because of which not only did our employees stick around, even our customers actually stuck around and made sure that whatever way they could support with us, supported. As you see right now, and maybe traffic on the Bangalore roads and the other roads are a good indicator. People are back at office, working in the office, and I think the need for digitization and tech-led product, tech-led office commute solution, especially in the hybrid world, becomes all the more important and all the more relevant. Sure. So now I want to understand the scale at which you operate, in terms of how many employees do you help transport on a daily basis, across how many kilometers, how many locations, both in India and globally? As of now, we ferry on average 6 lakhs employees. Just to sort of give you the perspective, in the Indian ITES space, there are 50 lakh employees, white-collar employees which work in the country. So 12% of those employees use MoveInSync every day, right? We do around 30 lakh trips in a month is what we cover. They are on average 20 kilometers trip, right? So around, I would say 6 crore kilometers we do every month on this scale. Okay, these are India numbers.
These are India. Outside of India, we are present with two products. We present in 38 countries, by the way. Our mobility products are mostly used in geographies which have India-like operations or use cases where workers have to commute to a distance to their office, and either the public transportation is not so strong or the car ownership is low. So our mobility products of commute are used in Philippines, Sri Lanka, South Africa. These are the major geographies. But we also, as I mentioned, during COVID, we added a workspace management product, which allows people to do desk booking, meeting room booking, parking management. That's sort of used globally in 38 countries.
So give me a sense of, the client adoption growth on a year-on-year basis and your revenue growth on a year-on-year basis. What is that looking like? Because, there is, of course, news that you are probably looking at an IPO sometime down the lane. So what sort of position or what goals do you want to achieve before hitting the street?
I don't have a very specific timeline, but maybe in the next 2 to 3 years is something we should evaluate when we would like to take on this journey. But I think let's come back to the growth. I think our growth in the last 5 years has been around 50% year on year. I think during COVID it saw a slump, but I think on an average the last 2 years had been more than 100%. We've grown 4 times. And I think that's probably because we're kind of leading the growth because of our tech product, our technology offering, both within India and outside of India, growing well. And our fleet offering, which is a services offering, we are mostly catered to solving the problems of our present clients. So I think the path seems very simple, or while it might look simple, but we just need to master that path of making sure that how do we keep our present clients happy and we solve more and more of their problems. And something which we feel we are good at, because our churn in the last 8 to 10 years has been close to 0%.
If you can tell me a little bit about your revenue model, marketing model, and I'm putting a couple of questions together here. Even in terms of your sales right now, is it more of a pull model that you've arrived at, and how do you really move up the value chain from here?
Revenue model is very simple. We charge on a per employee per month basis, right? Let's say a company has 1,000 employees and they are offering transportation which is used by 500 employees. So we will charge a company on a per employee per month basis. What is interesting is, I think the return to office patterns post-COVID has played some impact on it, and mostly the week has shrunk from 5 days to 3 days, right? But that's sort of mostly it's playing it out. In terms of scale, 420 to 450 crores is what we are looking at a revenue number for last financial year. And again, it will be a profitable growth for last year. Now, in terms of how do we approach, I think right now, MoveInSync has just become a brand, right? Like by default, we do the usual stuff, which is attend events, host events, be present in the places where things around transportation, commute, traffic, etc. are discussed. But we do get a significant amount of inbound leads, right, as well. And as we spoke a little earlier in the conversation, the market is fairly dominated by unorganized players, right? So at one end, you have like a large fortune company, think of it like Amazon, right? And they are dealing with unorganized supplier, and then eventually they sort of get the hang of maybe or experience of working with MoveInSync. So I think eventually enterprise clients would like to work with reliable suppliers. I think the most important part is business, which we also feel is reliability, right? If you promise something, deliver the SLAs, and most of the people are ready to pay for the delivery of the SLAs.
So give me a sense of how big is this, employee commute market in terms of a market size? Is there more room for organized players? We do have competitors like, Routematic, Shuttle, all of those companies.
Given our thesis on it and the way we work with our clients, the total spend just in the IT and the tech related space, according to me, is around 15,000 crores per annum spend. And it is massively unorganized, right? We would probably be at a revenue of 500 crores. We would be one of the top players, right? So you can see everybody's got a very, very small chunk of the revenue. But there is a massive amount of spend if you look at how the manufacturing in the country is growing, right? And you look at sort of how the manufacturing happens, right? Manufacturing would either happen at Hosur, or it's getting set up at Devanahalli, or in Chennai would get set up at Sri Perambadu. So these are places which are 40 to 50 kilometers. maybe people would hire locally within 20-30 kilometers, but they will provide a lot of space. So I think while I've said that the spend is 15,000 crores in the IT and the tech space, I think a significant more than 15,000 crores is getting spend in the manufacturing space as well. So I do feel that once the spend in the sector is around 30,000 crores or more, there is a fair amount of opportunity that even if you keep doing the right steps, you will be able to build a 4,000 to a 5,000 crore company. I think the space certainly needs consolidation of organized players, just like any other space. Unless you use technology to build an operations business, there's only so much you can scale, because you can only hire so many smart people whom you can trust. And that is the reason you will see that a lot of operators in this space of employee transportation would have capped to 100 to 200 crores. And they're all local players, right? I think that certainly gives us a significant amount of advantage that for whatever, I think the way we thought of it and some part of it played out, that we've always been a tech first company and we build services after being perfect at the tech. So I think it's an important part of companies which have to grow large in operations led businesses, that they have to think of it tech first and only then they can scale.
Let's now get a sense of patented algorithms that you have embedded in your products and the efficiencies that you really deliver to your clients. Maybe we'll take a ride in one of your EV fleet.
I do feel that especially in the corporate commute, where you'll be able to utilize the vehicle for around 200 kilometers, 150 to 200 kilometers a day. EV has a very good proposition. So let's go down and maybe I can take you around and show how some of these systems
work. Let's do that.
Yeah, sure.
We are in an EV vehicle, from the MoveInSync fleet. Deepesh, tell us a little bit more about, the kind of EV transport that you offer and what you have on offer here.
Presently in the MoveInSync fleet business, which is the MoveInSync One business, 15% of our fleet is EV. And right now the most common vehicle which is available in the category is the sedan in which we are sitting, which is by Tata's. There's probably one more option of Citroen which is out there, but I think this space of corporate commute does require more options to be there. This is a vehicle which has probably 180 to 200 kilometers charge, which I think is a good evolution. But I think price wise we do feel that maybe at a price at which it is selling, a few notches later, maybe around 15% less, is something which would be ideal for corporate transportation.
True. So in terms of, the demand from corporates, you did see that there's been a steady increase there. What is MoveInSync doing to help them, your big clients, achieve their, ESG goals and their carbon emission goals?
ESG is almost becoming like a table stake, if I were to. The way I think of it is that what information security was 5 years back, like you got to do it, there is no other option. Same ESG is becoming for all companies, not just the large ones, the small ones. Having said that, I think there is a willingness to spend for that ESG goal. People want to become sustainable, but they want sustainable solutions which don't drastically impact their bottom line. So I think what we are able to do as a large fleet provider is that, just like how the evolution happened in the IC vehicles, which is the diesel and the CNG. See, the play here is, can you cross-utilize this EV across multiple clients? And I think the solutions right now what are available is, some fleet provider is going to buy the vehicle and is just going to give it to that one client. Now the problem with that one client would be, they may or may not be able to use it for the 12 hours and run 200 kilometers, right? Because the way their operations are. So I think the value which we bring to the table, apart from making sure that there's predictability and no range anxiety, is to make sure that economically also the EV works out for them. And probably that's the reason that some of our clients, while I told you that the average is 15%, but one of our client is at 100% EV adoption.
So let's talk about the cost efficiencies and the optimization algorithms that are at play here in terms of charting out the best routes, the number of cars or the fleet that needs to be operated, and how really does that cater to cost savings, say, on an annual basis to your clients?
Sure. So I think of it this problem, while personally a lot of us use vehicles, but we use it in a point-to-point mode, right? You'd go from home to the airport.
Yeah.
There isn't a lot of clubbing around it, right? Because of which what happens is a car which can seat 3 to 4 people, you're just one person unless you are with a family. So the problem which we try to solve, Shivani, is that we do a sharing commute, right? As I probably mentioned you earlier, right? We do around 30 lakh trips in a month, in which on average 3 people are sitting, right? So it's around 10 crore commuters sort of during the ride, right? So on average 3 people are sitting in the vehicle. So what our technology does help is, how can you optimize that which 3 people need to be picked up such that on one hand, as an employee, you're worried about your commute time, right? Which is around an hour one side, right?
Yeah.
So how do you make sure that MoveInSync is able to figure it out using the past patterns, that if I have to get these 3 employees to the office by 7 a.m., what time will Shivani be picked? What time will Deepesh be picked? And let's say what time will Akash be picked exactly from their home, such that all of them 100% reach office by 7:55 a.m. And let's look at the cost. On average, a company spends around 6 to 7,000 rupees per employee per month on transportation of their employees. So after salary and maybe real estate cost, this is the third biggest expense. So it's certainly a very big line item from a CFO's point of view. The way MoveInSync tech helps them through route optimization and planning of the employees is, I think on average we are able to get 15% cost savings to the company.
Tell me, how does this really translate into, because at the end of the day, employee productivity and satisfaction, any case studies or data that you have around that that you can share?
Yeah, just employees reaching office who are less frustrated because of multiple times calling up the drivers, calling up their co-passengers, I think it's just a good experience, right? Personally, traffic, getting stuck in the traffic and cars showing up late is a time. And apart from that, I think we've been, as I mentioned to you, on average, an average Indian commutes 1 hour one side. So if the person is working 20 days, 40 hours is the commute time. So because of our planning, we generally are able to save at least 5% of the commute time. So that is like 2 hours added back to a person's life. But I think getting employees on time, right on time, does impact productivity. And if you see a lot of the Indian industry, the billing, which is the outcome which the companies make, is directly proportional to the, at least in some businesses like BPO and ITES, is related to the employee showing up to the office on time and hence being worked.
In terms of safety and security, that's another thing that is of high concern, especially when there are also, women workforce involved. So what are some of the features that you offer on that front? And tell me a little bit about, women in the workforce. Which sector are you seeing a large chunk of it coming from?
So Shivani, I think when we analyzed our data, in our data we saw that the women that the companies which we serve for, approximately 45% of the workforce is women. Now that is, if you look at the average trend which is published by NASSCOM or other, it's around 30% is the average women participation in the ITES. But what we are seeing very, very interesting patterns is that in this new economy, which we are heavily believing, apart from IT, will also get funded from the manufacturing segment, that's an interesting segment which I think we've been exposed to. We do see a lot of, not just the new age, even the older standard brands like Tata's, etc., they have disproportionately high number of women workforce. And I think those are reasons that there's less churn and there's high amount of reliability, etc. But I think what becomes important, not just for women who work in manufacturing, actually for all this, is that they want a safe option of commute. And I think if between companies like MoveInSync and maybe some initiatives by the government, I think if we can ensure a safer commute and a reliable commute, I think the country itself will benefit significantly to achieve its goal of a $5 trillion economy.
Oh, wow.
So I think there is a very strong correlation between providing a reliable, safe commute and women working for you. You see this SOS button right at the which is pointed, and maybe we can capture it. Apart from that, in the application there are features around SOS. And also there are preventive features such that let's say your house is in BTM and the cab which picks you along with the co-passengers does not reach your home at a specified time based upon your average commute time, is going to raise an automatic alert which is handled by the safety and security team of MoveInSync.
Okay. Now, in terms of market dynamics, right? Of course, COVID came and is gone. It gave rise to this whole hybrid culture. What are the workforce trends that you are seeing in terms of corporates calling back their workforce to the office?
As of now, we see around 3 days in a week people are working from the office. Okay. Now, this is on general across the white-collared workforce. 3 days in a week people are working from the office. This varies. This is as high as 4.5 to 5 for BPO and ITES. For a little tech and product companies, this is around 2.5 to 2.8. For banks, because obviously their front offices mostly in the US and Europe are mostly, the banks are office, their branches are open. They do strongly advise their employees to come back. So this number is around 3 to 3.5. So I think over time, I think this number is going to stabilize at 3 to 3.2 is what I feel, between how many days you're going to be working from the office, how many days working from home. But what is interesting is, I think once it is left to the employees, everybody's personal preference seems to be Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays as the week of preference, which is why you would normally see a lot of massive amount of traffic on Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays. Fridays, the traffic is actually because people are going out of station, so that's not because they are working from the office. So I think that demand uniformity needs to bring in over time, right? And I think one of the solutions which we sort of offer as a part of our offering is, we nudge the employee that if you travel on a non-peak day, let's say on a Monday at 10 a.m., your commute time is going to be 10 minutes less. So which happens is that there is a benefit for the company that you are able to utilize your resources across all the days, and there's also a benefit for the employee that the employee's commute time is reduced and the headache is reduced.
Right. Now the other players in this entire ecosystem are of course your drivers and fleet partners. What do you do to sort of train them, ensure that they are of course compliant, following the rules, regulations?
One of the reasons enterprise go this extra effort to onboard MoveInSync is basically they want to be on the right side of the law. We really make sure that all their compliances are met, digital records are available just in case of some untoward instance happens. Now, apart from that, I think there's a lot of work which we try to do for the driver. One of the initiative is to enable the reimbursement of their tax deducted at source, TDS. So there's a 2% TDS gets deducted, and on an average, driver makes 50,000 rupees a month. So that 2% amounts to 1,000 rupees. But most of the drivers sort of did not really care about getting that 2% back. But with the help of our financial platform, we are able to get this. The other initiative which we've recently also started is, most of these drivers don't get covered under insurance, right? Because they are not employees or full-time employees of any company, right? So we're sort of working with one of the insurance providers to figure it out that how we can offer some health insurance to these drivers. We do ensure that some of these trainings, health checkups, eye checkups, maybe sometimes even sugar checkups are needed such that the commute is safe for them as well as for the passengers.
Sure. You've been in this business for many years now. How do you believe you've disrupted the industry norms, and what is the kind of impact you have on the industry landscape?
Sure. We spoke about how predictability and being boring. So I think I would like to say that what we've made the business is, we've made this business which was looked upon by the clients as a very dirty, unorganized business to bring transparency and predictability into it. But eventually what we've got is that if there is a new GCC which is getting set up in India, I think while they would want to hire the best talent, they would want to talk to a MoveInSync to make sure that their best talent is retained in a very predictable manner. I think that's something, Shivani, which we feel we've brought to the table.
Sure, great to have you on Disruptor Dialogues. Deepesh, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure, and I certainly enjoyed our chat, Shivani. Thank you so much.
Thank you.